I'm Gretchen Hall, 30 years old. I thought this Thanksgiving would be a chance to reconnect with my family at my sister's house in Raleigh, North Carolina. I drove 2 hours with a bottle of wine and homemade pumpkin bread, hoping for warmth and laughter. But the moment I sat down at the dinner table, my sister's voice cut through the chatter. "Oh, we didn't make a plate for you. There's not enough food," she said. Her dog, a yapping little thing, was already scarfing down seconds from a fancy bowl. My parents didn't bat an eye. They just kept passing the mashed potatoes. The air felt heavy, their eyes avoiding mine. I didn't argue. I didn't yell. I just stood up, grabbed my wine and bread, and walked out the door, my heart pounding. By the time I got to my car, my phone was buzzing with texts from the family group chat. "You're so selfish," one read. "You ruined Thanksgiving," said another. I didn't respond. I wasn't starting drama. I was done being their doormat. And what I found out later made my blood boil. But that's not the half of it. Have you ever been turned away and abandoned by your own family? Leave a comment and share how it felt. You won't believe what they did next. Sometimes, the truth is even more painful than we could ever imagine. The 2-hour drive to Raleigh wasn't easy, but I still hoped for a peaceful evening. For years, I've always been the one my family pushed aside. My sister, Tracy, always had a knack for making me feel like I didn't matter. 2 years ago, she asked to borrow $700 for a car repair. I sent the money, thinking it was what sisters do. She never paid it back. When I asked my parents, Mom and Dad told me to let it go. "Family doesn't keep score," Mom said, her voice sharp. Dad just nodded, like always, siding with Tracy. That moment stung, but I brushed it off, hoping things would change. This Thanksgiving, I wanted to try again. I spent hours picking out gifts: a bottle of Merlot, Tracy's favorite, and a tray of pumpkin bread I baked from scratch, hoping it would spark some warmth. I imagined us laughing, sharing stories, maybe feeling like a real family for once. I pulled into Tracy's driveway in Raleigh, my hands gripping the gifts, my heart heavy with hope. When I knocked, Tracy opened the door, her face blank, like I was an inconvenience. "Hey," she muttered, barely glancing at me, then turned back to Mom and Dad, who were already chatting about her latest work project. I stepped inside, the house filled with their voices, none directed at me. Tracy's husband, Shane, was sprawled on the couch, scrolling his phone, not bothering to look up. I stood there, holding the wine and bread, feeling like I'd walked into a party I wasn't invited to. I tried to shake off the cold welcome, telling myself it was just a moment. I set the gifts on the kitchen counter, hoping they'd notice. Tracy glanced at the wine, said, "Nice," then went back to talking about her new promotion. Mom and Dad didn't even see the bread. They were too busy asking Tracy about her sales numbers. I tried to join in, mentioning my own job, but Tracy cut me off to brag about her dog's new groomer. Mom laughed, saying how clever that dog was, while Dad asked about its training. I stood by the counter, my words ignored, my presence barely registered. Shane stayed glued to his phone, chuckling at Tracy's stories, not once looking my way. It was like I was a ghost, unseen in their perfect little world. When dinner was served, things got worse. The table was set with turkey, stuffing, and all the fixings, but there was no plate for me. I looked at Tracy, waiting for an explanation. "Oh, we didn't make a plate for you," she said, her tone flat. "There's not enough food." I stared, stunned, as she scooped a second helping onto a fancy bowl for her yapping dog, who was already licking its chops from the first round. Mom and Dad didn't blink. They just passed the gravy, their eyes fixed on Tracy. My chest tightened, but I didn't say a word. I stood up, grabbed my wine and bread from the counter, and walked out the door, my hands shaking. I didn't yell or argue. I just left, the weight of their indifference pressing down on me. By the time I reached my car, my phone was buzzing. I checked the family group chat. "You're so rude," Tracy's message read. "You ruined Thanksgiving," Mom wrote, her words sharp. Dad chimed in, "Why can't you just be grateful?" I sat there, staring at the screen, my heart pounding. They thought I was the problem, like I'd done something wrong by refusing to be invisible. I didn't respond. I wasn't starting drama. I just couldn't take it anymore. That night, I drove home, the gift still in my back seat, my mind racing with everything I'd let slide for years. Something in me shifted. I wasn't going to let them walk all over me anymore. The morning after, I opened my banking app out of habit. Something felt off, like an itch I couldn't ignore. I scrolled through my account, expecting to see my usual balance: rent, groceries, the occasional coffee. But then a string of charges stopped me cold. A $180 purchase at a Raleigh boutique, a $120 concert ticket, another $250 at a high-end department store. My fingers froze on the screen, my breath shallow. These weren't my transactions. They were linked to a joint account I'd set up with Tracy years ago, back when she swore she needed help with urgent expenses. I'd believed her, even after she never paid back the $700 I lent her. Now, staring at those numbers, I felt a wave of disbelief crash over me. I dug into the statements, my eyes scanning every line. The charges went back 6 months: $200 for designer jeans, $150 for a spa treatment, $300 for a wine club subscription. Over $2,000 in total, spent on things Tracy flaunted while I scraped by. Each entry was a stab, proof she'd been dipping into my money like it was hers. I remembered her polished nails at dinner, her new boots, the way she bragged about her great deals. My stomach twisted, not just at the betrayal, but at how careless she was with it. She didn't even try to hide it, just assumed I'd never check. Mom and Dad had pushed me to open that account, saying Tracy needed a safety net. They never asked how it was used, never cared what it cost me. Their faces flashed in my mind, smiling at her stories, blind to her greed. I kept scrolling, the numbers piling up: a $90 dinner at a fancy restaurant, a $75 makeup palette. Every charge felt personal, like Tracy was laughing at me behind my back. I'd been working overtime to cover my bills while she treated herself to concerts and clothes with my money. The realization hit hard: this wasn't a mistake. She knew exactly what she was doing. I thought about all the times I'd let her slide, telling myself, family comes first. But this wasn't family. This was theft. My hands shook as I opened the transaction details, seeing her name tied to every withdrawal. She had linked her card to the account, making it easy to spend without a word to me. The audacity of it burned through my shock, leaving raw anger in its place. I grabbed my phone and called the bank, my voice tight but controlled. "I need to close a joint account," I said, reading off the number. The agent hesitated, asking if both parties agreed. "I'm the primary holder," I cut in. "Close it now." She walked me through the steps, her tone professional but cautious, warning about shared access. I didn't care. I confirmed my identity, answered her questions, and within 15 minutes, the account was gone. A small part of me felt lighter, like I'd cut a chain that had been dragging me down. That account was my last tie to Tracy's endless demands, and I was done letting her bleed me dry. I sat back, staring at the confirmation email from the bank. Closing the account wasn't just about money. It was about taking back control. For years, I'd let Tracy and my parents walk over me, always giving in to keep the peace. But seeing those charges, knowing she'd spent thousands without a shred of guilt, changed something in me. I wasn't just angry. I was done. Done with her entitlement. Done with Mom and Dad's excuses for her. I didn't send a text or call to confront her. I didn't need to. The closed account said everything. Tracy could keep her new wardrobe and concert memories. I was building a life where I didn't have to pay for her lies. A few days later, I received a strange email from work. It came from an anonymous account, the subject line blank, but the words inside were sharp. "Everyone knows you're too stingy to care about family." My stomach dropped as I read it, sitting at my desk, the office hum fading around me. The email didn't name names, but I knew who was behind it. Tracy had a history of twisting things to make me look bad, and this felt like her handiwork. I closed the email, my hands cold, and tried to focus on my work, but the accusation clung to me like a stain I couldn't scrub off. I opened my phone and checked social media, something I rarely did. There it was on Tracy's public page, a long post about how I'd abandoned our family, painting me as a selfish sister who turned her back on everyone. Some people only care about themselves, she wrote, leaving their family to pick up the pieces. The post had dozens of likes, mostly from her friends. But what hit harder were the shares from Mom and Dad. Mom commented, "It's heartbreaking when family lets you down." Dad added, "We raised her better than this." Each word felt like a calculated jab, meant to shame me in front of strangers. I scrolled through the comments, seeing people I didn't know piling on, calling me ungrateful, cold, even cruel. My chest tightened, not from sadness, but from a growing resolve to fight back. I forwarded the email to my personal account, saving it as evidence. Then I took screenshots of Tracy's post and my parents' comments, my fingers moving fast, like I was building a case. I didn't know what I'd do with it yet, but I wasn't going to let them rewrite my story. That evening, I met my friend Ian at a coffee shop in Raleigh. I'd known Ian since college, and he'd always been the one to call things as he saw them. I showed him the post, my voice steady but low. "They're saying I abandoned them," I said, sliding my phone across the table. Ian read it, his brow furrowing, then leaned back. "This is retaliation," he said plainly. "You cut off their access to your money, and now they're trying to hurt you." He pointed at the screen. "This post, that email, it's a coordinated attack. They're mad you stood up for yourself." Ian's words hit like a spark. I hadn't told him about the joint account, but he'd pieced it together from the post's bitter tone. He leaned forward, his voice firm. "You need to protect yourself. Save everything, texts, emails, those bank statements you mentioned. Don't engage with them online. They want you to react to look like the bad guy." I nodded, his advice grounding me. Ian wasn't just guessing. He'd seen how Tracy twisted things before, like when she blamed me for missing her birthday when I was stuck working overtime. He'd always been the one to remind me I wasn't crazy for feeling used. Back home, I pulled up every piece of evidence I could find. I saved the anonymous email, noting its timestamp and the generic domain it came from. I downloaded the bank statements from the joint account, highlighting every charge Tracy made. I went through old texts, finding messages where Tracy promised to repay me, her words empty even then. I organized everything into a folder on my laptop, each file a brick in the wall I was building. It wasn't just about protecting myself. It was about proving I wasn't the villain they wanted everyone to see. Tracy's post kept spreading, her friends adding more comments, their words sharp but vague, like they'd been fed half-truths. Mom shared the post again, her caption a plea for family unity that felt like a slap. Dad's silence after his first comment was just as loud. He'd always backed Tracy, even when it meant ignoring me. I didn't respond online, didn't call them, didn't give them the fight they wanted. Instead, I kept building my case, my resolve hardening with every screenshot. Ian texted me later that night, "Stay strong. They're trying to break you, but you are smarter than that." His words were a lifeline, pulling me back from the edge of doubt. I sat at my kitchen table, staring at the folder of evidence. This wasn't just about a post or an email. It was about years of being pushed aside, expected to take it with a smile. Tracy thought she could shame me into submission, and Mom and Dad were happy to help. But I wasn't the same person who'd let them walk over me. I wasn't going to let their lies define me. I closed my laptop, feeling a quiet strength settle in. Whatever they threw at me next, I'd be ready. 1 week later, Shane showed up at my doorstep. I opened the door, startled to see him standing there, his face weary, hands stuffed in his jacket pockets. "Can we talk?" he asked, his voice low, almost hesitant. I nodded, stepping aside, my guard up. Shane had always been a shadow in Tracy's orbit, silent when she dismissed me. But something about his expression told me this wasn't a casual visit. We sat at my kitchen table, the air heavy with unspoken tension. I waited, my fingers tracing the edge of a coffee mug, unsure what he wanted. "I owe you an apology," Shane started, his eyes fixed on the table. "I should have spoken up sooner. I saw how Tracy treated you, and I just let it happen." His words caught me off guard, a flicker of relief cutting through my weariness. He leaned forward, his voice steady but strained. "I didn't realize how bad it was until recently. Tracy and your parents, they had a plan. They wanted to pressure you into keeping the money flowing, to guilt you into thinking you owed them. My jaw tightened, a mix of validation and anger rising in my chest. I'd suspected Tracy's motives, but hearing it laid bare felt like a punch I hadn't braced for. Shane ran a hand through his hair, his expression darkening. They'd sit around, talking about how to bring you back in line. Tracy said you'd cave if they pushed hard enough, made you feel like the bad guy. Your mom and dad agreed, said you needed to learn your place, he said. He paused, shaking his head. I heard them plotting after you left their house, figuring out ways to make you feel responsible for their problems. It was all about control, he added. I sat back, my mind racing. Their words, their actions, it all clicked into place, a calculated effort to keep me under their thumb. The weight of it settled in, heavy but clarifying. I'm done with her, Shane said suddenly, his voice firm. I'm filing for divorce. I can't live with someone who manipulates people like that, who lies to everyone, including me. He looked at me, his eyes raw with conviction. Tracy's not who I thought she was. She's been playing this game for years, and I'm sick of her hypocrisy, he said. His words hung in the air, a line drawn between the life he'd known and the one he was choosing. I didn't know what to say, but a part of me respected his resolve, a mirror to the boundary I'd been building myself. I took a deep breath, my voice steady. I'm done with them, too. Tracy, Mom, Dad, I'm cutting them off for good. No calls, no texts, nothing. Shane nodded, like he'd expected it. You're doing the right thing, he said. They don't deserve you. His support was unexpected, a crack of light in the mess I'd been navigating. I didn't need his approval, but it felt good to know someone else saw through their facade. Shane stood to leave, pausing at the door. I'm sorry it took me so long, he said, then walked out, leaving me with a strange sense of closure. Later that day, I called Ian. He'd been my rock through this, and I needed to hear his voice. Shane came by, I told him, explaining everything. Ian listened, his silence thoughtful, then said, You're stronger than they think. They tried to break you, but you're still standing. His words hit deep, a reminder that I wasn't alone. Keep your head up, he added. You're building a life they can't touch. I hung up, feeling a quiet strength take root. Tracy and my parents could scheme all they wanted. I was done playing their game. I blocked their numbers, deleted their contacts, and felt the chains of their expectations fall away. This wasn't just about protecting myself. It was about choosing who I wanted to be. A few days later, I decided to expose the truth. I sat at my desk, my laptop open, the folder of evidence I'd been compiling glowing on the screen. It wasn't just about clearing my name. It was about ending the lies Tracy had spun for years. I pulled together every piece of proof, bank statements showing her unauthorized charges, $180 for a boutique dress, $120 for concert tickets, $250 for department store purchases, and old texts where she promised to repay me, each one a hollow excuse. I organized them into a clear, concise email, attaching screenshots for clarity. My hands were steady, but a fire burned in my chest, a mix of determination and defiance. I sent the email to a select group, mutual friends who'd seen Tracy's public accusations, a few of her coworkers whose names I knew from her stories, and a local Raleigh community group we were both part of. The message was simple: I'm setting the record straight. This is what really happened. I didn't embellish or plead. I let the evidence speak. The bank statements showed her spending, the texts revealed her lies, and a timeline laid out how she'd used me while painting herself as the victim. I hit send, my pulse steady, knowing there was no turning back. Within hours, the community group exploded with reactions. People I barely knew posted comments, stunned by Tracy's actions. This is disgusting, one wrote. Using your sister's money like that? Another called out Mom and Dad for enabling her. Your parents knew and did nothing? That's shameful. The backlash was swift, a wave of disapproval that spread through Raleigh's tight-knit circles. Tracy's friends, who'd once cheered her online, went silent. A former coworker messaged me privately. I had no idea she was like this. I'm sorry. Mom and Dad's reputations took a hit, too. Neighbors who'd seen their supportive comments on Tracy's post now questioned their judgment. The truth had shifted the narrative, and I felt a surge of empowerment, like I'd reclaimed a piece of myself. I wasn't done. I contacted a lawyer, a woman named Karen, who Ian recommended for her no-nonsense approach. I met her at her office in downtown Raleigh, bringing my folder of evidence. "I want them to stop," I told her, my voice firm. "No more harassment. No more lies." Karen reviewed the documents, her eyes sharp as she nodded. "This is solid," she said. "We'll draft a cease and desist letter. Make it clear you're serious." She outlined the process. The letter would demand Tracy stop spreading falsehoods and contacting me, with a warning of legal action if she didn't comply. I left her office feeling unburdened, like I'd handed over a weight I'd carried too long. Ian was with me every step of the way. He'd called right after I sent the email, his voice warm but steady. "You did the right thing," he said. "They can't hide from this." When I told him about the lawyer, he offered to join me for the meeting, but I wanted to face it alone. Still, his support was a lifeline. "You're not just fighting for yourself," he told me over coffee later that week. "You're showing them you're done being their pawn." His words fueled me, a reminder that I was building a life free from their control. The lawyer sent the cease and desist letter to Tracy's address, with copies to Mom and Dad. It was formal, direct, listing their actions, Tracy's financial abuse, their coordinated efforts to defame me, and demanding they cease all contact. Karen warned me they might lash out, but the community's reaction had already shifted the tide. Tracy's online presence went quiet, her posts hidden or deleted. Mom and Dad stopped engaging in the community group. Their silence, a stark contrast to their earlier boldness. I didn't hear from them directly, and for the first time, that silence felt like victory. I'd taken back my story, and no one could twist it anymore. 1 month later, Tracy sent me a long email, but I knew her true colors too well by now. The subject line read, "I'm sorry." But the words inside were a tangled mess of excuses and blame. She wrote about how hurt she felt by my actions, claiming I'd misunderstood her intentions and pushed her into a corner. "You forced my hand," she typed, as if her lies were my fault. I skimmed the rest, catching phrases like, "family should stick together," and "you've always been too sensitive." It was the same old script, half apologies laced with accusations, designed to make me second-guess myself. I deleted it without a reply, my heart calm but firm. My phone buzzed with texts from Mom and Dad, their messages echoing Tracy's tone. Mom's was long-winded, "We're struggling and you've turned your back on us." Dad's was, "Gretchen, you need to help your family." Their words carried a familiar weight, a demand for me to fix their problems. I didn't respond. I swiped the notifications away, their pleading falling into the digital void. I'd spent years bending to their guilt trips, but now I saw them for what they were, empty attempts to pull me back into their control. My focus was elsewhere, on the life I was building without their shadows. Word spread in Raleigh about their downfall. Friends who'd seen my evidence shared stories of Tracy's unpaid debts, her habit of borrowing without repaying. A neighbor posted in the community group about Mom and Dad dodging bills, their polished image crumbling. Local shop owners whispered about bounce checks and ignored invoices. The community that once admired them now kept their distance, their trust eroded by the truth I'd exposed. Tracy's social media went silent, her usual stream of curated posts replaced by absence. Mom and Dad withdrew, too, their names fading from local events. Their financial struggles were their own making, and I felt no obligation to bail them out. I leaned on Ian more than ever. We met at a quiet diner, where he listened as I vented about the emails and texts. "They're desperate," he said, stirring his coffee. "They're losing control, and they hate it." His voice was steady, a reminder that I wasn't alone. Ian had a knack for cutting through the noise, helping me see the bigger picture. "You're free now," he told me. "Focus on what's next." We spent hours sketching out plans, my career goals, a trip I'd always wanted to take, a new apartment closer to work. His encouragement wasn't just words. It was a push to believe in myself, to trust the path I was carving. I sat in my apartment that night, the city's hum outside my window. For the first time in years, I felt unshackled, like I could breathe without the weight of their expectations. Tracy's email, Mom and Dad's texts, they were noise, not truth. I didn't need their approval or their apologies. My life was mine now, built on my terms, with Ian's steady presence reminding me I was enough. I closed my laptop, a smile tugging at my lips. Freedom wasn't just an idea. It was real, and I was living it. 2 months later, I stood in a small room, wearing a simple wedding dress. The soft fabric brushed my skin as I adjusted my veil, my reflection steady in the mirror. The venue, a cozy garden in Raleigh, buzzed with the quiet laughter of close friends, their voices a warm hum outside. Ian waited out there, his calm presence a promise of the life we were building. This wasn't just a wedding. It was a declaration of my choice to prioritize joy over obligation, to surround myself with people who lifted me up. My phone pinged as I stepped toward the door. A text from Tracy, her name flashing like a warning. "Please, we need to talk," followed by a string of emojis meant to soften her words. I didn't open the full message. My finger hovered over the block button, and with a single tap, I silenced her for good. I'd already cut ties, and today wasn't about her or her excuses. It was about me, Ian, and the future we'd chosen together. I slipped the phone into a drawer, leaving her words behind like dust swept away. Raleigh's whispers about Tracy, Mom, and Dad hadn't stopped. Their financial troubles had deepened, creditors calling, utilities cut off, their once shiny reputation now tarnished. The community group posted updates: Tracy's car repossessed, Mom and Dad's house facing foreclosure. Neighbors who'd once invited them to barbecues now crossed the street to avoid them. Their isolation was complete, a consequence of their own actions. I didn't revel in their downfall, but I felt no guilt either. They'd built their cage, and I was done holding the key. The ceremony began, simple and heartfelt. Ian stood at the altar, his smile anchoring me as I walked down the aisle. Our friends, a tight circle of support, clapped softly, their faces bright with genuine care. We exchanged vows, promising trust, respect, and a shared journey. When Ian slipped the ring onto my finger, a wave of peace washed over me, clean and unburdened. This was my family now, not one bound by blood, but by choice. The reception was small, with string lights and a playlist we'd curated together, laughter filling the air as we danced. Later, as we sat under the stars, Ian squeezed my hand. "You're glowing," he said, his voice soft but sure. "This is what you deserve." His words settled deep, a confirmation that I'd made the right choice. We talked about our plans, a quiet honeymoon, a new project at work, a home we'd make ours. Every word felt like a brick laid in a foundation stronger than anything I'd known. I was free, not just from Tracy and my parents, but from the weight of their expectations. Looking back, I saw the lesson clearly. Family isn't a debt you owe, no matter how much they demand. Self-respect, the kind I'd fought for, was worth more than their approval. I'd spent years trying to please them, only to learn their love came with strings. Cutting those strings wasn't easy, but it gave me this, a life built on truth, with Ian by my side. As the night ended, I leaned into him, my heart full. I wasn't just a bride. I was myself, whole and unbroken.